Okay, starting the next siman, Lamed Gimel. Okay, so this is a much shorter siman. Din tikunei tefillin v'din haratzuas. Says the Mechaber. Im niskalkel shal shnei batim. If the leather of the two batim have become worn, mibote harosh zeh etzel zeh, one next to each other. In other words, remember the Tefillin shel Rosh is made up of 4 compartments. Here's the Tefillin shel Rosh. These are 4 separate compartments which have been they're close together, but there is a gap between each of them. They're 4 separate compartments. And if on the inside, he's got pictures in the book, that it's become worn on the leather, then you've got a bit of a problem. If you look, Eli, on page 229, sorry. So if you think this is like the inside, can you see it? The inside of the button. And they're made up of 4 sections. So you've got little, worn little holes and little loosenings of the bottom of the leather inside. So if on the various compartments, it's going to discuss where the problems are going to be. So says the Mechaber, Niskalkel Orach shnei batim, the leather of the batim becomes worn, it becomes ruined. Meboti harosh of the rosh, zeh etzel zeh. Imat tefillin yeshonim, if it's old tefillin, psulim, then that passes it. But if they're new, then we don't worry that it's going to become worse. They're still new. So long as the of the box of the bias is established, then it's okay. They were torn a little bit. However, says the Ramah, people say it's the other way around. And the svara for that is, if they're chadoshim, you've already got holes in the leather, that's bad news. That's a siman that it's on the way out. Mashenken, the yeshonim, then they've stood the test of time, therefore they'll be okay. That's Rashi in the Rosh. The Ramah, however, says once you've got holes and worn leather, then he passes both of them. What is called chadosh? So chodesh means, it's not a question of time really, it's a question of, if you pull the ratzuas, the leather is going to stretch, then nikra chodesh. It may the niftach nikra yoshin. Imagine the leather is so worn that it's got no pull anymore, and if you pull it, it's got no stretch. That's called yoshan. Then rishon v'shlishi. Right. So if 2 are ruined next to each other, rishon v'shlishi. So imagine you've got 4 boxes. So if you've got a problem on box number 1 and box number 3, afilu hem yeshanim, even if they're old, then v'niskalkul shleisha batim, but if niskalkul 3 batim, b'chol inyan pesulim. So I think I missed the line. V'niskalkul shnayim zeh shaloi keneged zeh. If 2 of the 4 batim, 2 of the 4 boxes of the shel rosh have got a problem, rishon v'shlishi, for example, box number 1 and 3, kasherim. Even if there's none, that's kosher. But if 3 of the 4 batim have been niskalkel, have become ruined, then bechol inyan pesulim. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, niskalkel, pirush, nifsek v'nasek kera. It's snapped, it's torn, it's become worn in some way. Mibote harosh, like I showed you in the picture, like the little, the leather of the 4 batim inside have become worn or torn. If there is a tear on the shel yad, then everyone agrees that's possible. Even though the titera, which is the bias, so here's your shel yad, even though the titera is fully okay, but if there's a little hole in the shel yad or it's become worn, then you've got a problem. And it's not the same as the shel rosh. Because you've got 4 separate things. So if there's a problem in one, the others are actually okay. You've got 2 next to each other of the shel rosh. The bottom of the shel rosh are made up of 4 batim which are next to each other. Even if the holes are not samach, they're not next to each other. There's, for example, in the second of the 4 batim, there's a little tear. Bedofna hayemini on the right hand side. V'kera hasheni ba'bayis hashlishi, and there is a little tear on the 3rd box. Loishna bedofna hayemini aismal. It doesn't make a difference if it's on the right or left hand side. V'afidu kera zelamala v'zelamata. Even if one of the tears is higher up and one is lower down. V'chol shkenim shneim ba'avir echod. And certainly it's a problem if it's on the same airspace side, zeh keneged zeh, to parcel. that will pass the tefillin. Yeshonim pesulim, says Mishmur Sivkot and Dalet, Tekvan iskalkul machamas yashon, they've now become ruined because of their age. V'hayesh orim, and the other way around, which says it's actually better. Svir leilehepech, they say faket. The bechadoshim, if it's a tear in new leather, iglim milsa de makulkalu, the leather itself is not a good quality, it's ruined. Because in such a short period of time it is already torn. I mean, even whether these reasons don't apply, it wasn't the leather per se, but sometimes you see this, people daven moedim and they can damage their tefillin because they bang their head against the wall, or they a knife somehow cut the wool in, and therefore it's not a problem per se in the leather. Yesh lahachmir, one should still be machmir. Umikol mokum. Tzided have a sefer pischei tshuva. The dibuk mahani im ein yon yodim she'ein ha'ar mekulkul. If you know that the ar is not mekulkul, gluing it back on would help. Even for those who say that the ar should be one piece of leather, ein sham. Chadoshim kasherim va'afilu haker b'shnei abatim b'shnei dafnei seihem. If they're new, then even if the tear is on the sharosh, two of the batim on the same side. Kayom hainut hatitayra, the titayra, the base part. Avol b'beis Yosef pirish de boy sheyu shleimin mikol sodim. It's got to be shalim all the way around. You only fix up. You only a machshir there where the tear is on the inside of the bias. Bein bias lebias, on the inside of the tefillin, between the two batim, between the four compartments of the shel rosh. V'zeu gam kin das shemoshe tikul alocha v'kosav gam habatim strichim yos kayomin ela shenikru tzad, they're just torn a little bit. Pirush shenikru ben bias lebias, on the inside they're torn, they're ripped a little bit. Avat stodim strichim yos shalim, but the outside four edges need to be shalim. V'afilu karba bias echod im nasim mebachuz levat gam ken yesh lahachmir. If the deficiency, the little hole, the tear is on the outside, then yesh lahachmir, that we should fix them up. Okay, Sif Cotton Zayin, Lifsal B'Shnehem, Al-Kain, Yesh Lifsal Mashargin and HaSofrim, you should puzzle what some Sofrim do, Kshe'oisin Hadalet Batim, when they make four Batim, V'noistim Oisei B'Tfus, and then they put them into some sort of press, Choytchim in Ar Bein Bias Lebias, and they cut the leather between each bias, that it shouldn't be projecting out, and then they cover over the point of the incision from inside, so it just gives the appearance from the outside that it's cholim. It spreads. When you make the ma'abarta from the same leather, from the same piece of leather that you make the batim. But for us, the ma'abarta, this part of the tefillin, if it's from a separate piece of leather, then that svara doesn't apply. Rishon v'shlishi, the third and the fourth bias, that's called not in front of each other. Even if the tear is on the same side of the third bias, the third of the fourth bias of the sharosh, it's kosher. Because you've got a whole bias, i.e. number 2, whatever, which is mafsik beinehem. But if you've got a tear in the second and third compartments of the shel rosh, after even though one tear is on the right and one is on the left, and then you've got more of a problem. Even one side, in all these situations, in all situations, you should be machmir and try and make sure that they're sholim, even on new ones. The that previously were machmir, b'sholim afilu b'zeh etzazeh. Mikol mokum b'shlishi possible. But b'shlishi, sorry, that would definitely be possible. Okay, Beseda, we'll leave it there.